Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to a mini-sode of Baka. We are normally an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we watch an anime, we come together, we talk about it like a book club, we listen to your comments to fill in the things that we cannot possibly fathom with our small little minds. Every other week, we use those same minds to come up with topics to talk about to remind you we exist. And this week, we actually have something that is more similar to the regular ones. We watched a movie, anime, kind of. If you clicked on it, you're thinking, oh my god, they watched a new movie. We didn't. We watched the original movie of Alita, Battle Angel Alita?
Yeah.
Battle Angel Alita. And to talk about it first, I need the help of my co-host. First off, we have the spine to my brain, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Vital. And here. Both good things. Yeah, pretty good. I actually discovered... I'm not going to bother talking about school, but I discovered in RimWorld you can place the trading spot if you get a really cool mod that lets you do that. And so if you just happen to coincidentally have a whole bunch of traders coming in the caravan, and you have enemies on the map you really don't want to deal with, you can just put your trader right in the middle of the enemies, and you get a bunch of awesome stuff when the traders die and some of the enemies die.
All right, so up next, we have the kidney stone to my urinary tract. Jason, how are you?
Are you kidding me?
Oh, wait. Did I say kidney stone? I was supposed to just be kidney, but somehow that popped into my head. I'm sorry, man. How are you?
I was about to say, that's not a part of the body. Doing well. I actually went and saw Alita Battle Angel in theaters, and I want to say, and I want to encourage all of our listeners, if you can, make the effort to see this for a couple of reasons. Whether you end up coming out of it liking it or not, this is the kind of production value and the kind of storytelling that is so faithful to an anime without making it weird or cheesy. And it's just it's so beautiful. Whether you end up liking the story or not, which I really ended up liking it, this was anime on the big screen in live action done right. And I think we need to send a message as a community that we want more of this. I think James Cameron needs an applause, and this, just really, really well done.
Awesome. I want to go see it.
So it's everything Ghost in the Shell wasn't.
Yes, I've heard that comparison quite a few times, actually. That was the reviews.
That was the last anime live action movie made, right?
That we watched,
or Hollywood made, I think.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of neat tricks that Cameron employs that I could see from Avatar, and that is when you're going to have CG on screen. Actually, they did because Troy's a cinephile. I ended up having to watch a little bit of review of Speed Racer. They pulled the same trick. No, well, it's a really, really good trick that if you're going to have a particular type of CG, you want to have as much of it on screen as possible. So not only does your audience get used to it, but it becomes natural to see them in the settings that you're putting them in. And Alita does a fantastic job with this.
That's cool.
Done. Yeah. And my name is Troy, and I am the toe to the foot because I'm supporting this team.
You bring balance.
I was going to say the corns to the foot.
You don't get to.
Oh.
And I finished watching The Umbrella Academy on Netflix, and that was awesome.
Is it a Resident Evil thing?
No, The Umbrella Academy is a graphic novel. It reminded me of League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and not the movie, the actual comic. But the concept is on the same day a bunch of children are born for women who weren't pregnant when that day started. And they all have superpowers. And this rich billionaire goes out into the world and he buys as many as he can, and he gets 7 of them, and he raises them to be a superhero team. And then the show takes place as they are adults and they are highly dysfunctional. It's basically like how being in the X-Men would really mess you up.
That sounds amazing.
He didn't name them. He gave them numbers. They're 1 through 7. One didn't have powers, so was never included. The competition between 1 and 2 and what that means. And number 1's loyal. Number 2 is rebellious. 1 can see dead people, so now he's a drug addict to hide his power. and they're just all so messed up. And their father dies. And one of their brothers, who could teleport and then accidentally teleported through time, comes back 26 years later and says, the apocalypse is in a week. We have to stop it. But he's stuck, even though he's a 65-year-old man, he's stuck in a 14-year-old body. And the child actor that plays him, you feel he is the oldest, most mature man in the room talking to older actors. And I was so impressed. And also the soundtrack is hot fire. It's so good.
So it's not an anime, or it is an anime?
No, it's a live action TV show. On Netflix, 10 episodes. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. Haunting on Hill House was still better for me, but it was up there with that same kind of production level and storytelling and looking at how parents mess up their kids.
Made you feel real good about yourselves.
Oh, absolutely. It was interesting to see what my kids thought about certain character choices. Anyway, we are talking about Battle Angel Alita, the original anime OVA from back in the day. We've all watched it, and we didn't all have a chance to go to the theaters and see Battle Angel Alita, despite Jason's call to rally to it. I'm not going.
Thanks.
Sorry, Detective Pikachu. Man. As much as I am a cinephile, I only go to movies like 3 times a year. And there's a Star Wars this year, there's an Avengers this year, and that Detective Pikachu is too good to pass up right now.
You could probably trade the Star Wars.
Absolutely cannot. Not even close. Not priority. Anyway, so we're gonna do a quick non-spoiler conversation about it, and then we're going to do a spoiler section and kind of talk about just random thoughts. I have no show notes this time. We're not going to be really going through plot point by plot point like we do in our regular episodes, so it's just kind of more of us rambling about what our thoughts were. So let's start with our non-spoiler review. Jeremy, you picked this minisode. Thanks for the extra work. What'd you think?
I absolutely love it. After I finished watching it, and probably during it at different points, I remembered that, yes, I have in fact seen this before. And Tanya was watching it with me. And surprisingly enough, when she was in school, there was somebody that she used to hang out with that asked her to draw this character. And so she recognized her in there. And she's like, wait a minute, I know that character. What's going on here? So yeah, so apparently we both had a history with this without even realizing it, which was really cool. As far as the anime itself, absolutely loved it. It has this sort of melancholy that I look down upon in like Violet Evergarden because it's in such a heavy dose, but because it's just two episodes that are like 30 minutes apiece, and that's it. It came in a dose package that I really enjoyed. Like this was just right for me. And everything is so serious. It's so gritty, and it's such a Blade Runner universe. It's just, I absolutely loved it. It was great.
Jason, what'd you think?
It may have been a disservice to see the movie in the theater first. And I had to walk into it with that knowledge. This screamed like early 90s to me.
Yes.
Like this was just a slap in the face of nostalgia because I didn't see it back in the day. So the dialogue was a bit wonky. But all the concepts were there, and like a lot of the story beats were very similar to the movie. It's so funny because the movie is nearly 2-hour long runtime. So because I was trying not to compare it, the storytelling felt a little rushed in the 1 hour thing. So a lot of it's compressed. But that being said, I actually really enjoyed it. Like, especially for like that old '90s, because I'm not a big old '90s anime fan. But this had some really, really good ambiance about the world, really good world building, um, and also like the characters in the anime felt genuine, which I don't get a lot of from '90s, because the '90s was very tropey. So
Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed myself watching this one.
For me, I guess I mostly enjoyed it. I had a hard time. I'll be honest. The nostalgia, like you said, the nostalgia's a little rough. I was a little like, okay, this is old. The English dub that I watched, the dubbing was old. The actress performing Alita's battle cries, especially, was like, okay, she made a choice there.
And she's committed.
Yeah, and her when she talked to you, it's fine. Whenever she fought, she would make these noises that I was like, oh, okay.
I didn't get to hear that. That sounds interesting.
And it's not really fair to put it down because this is really something that pioneered. I definitely felt what Jason's talking about the rush storytelling. I felt like if this was drawn out and you could see the story arcs and having to go through them in 10 minutes instead of 3 or 4 episodes, definitely had an effect on the storytelling. But the core there, that what everything is built upon, is super solid and super good. The world is great, the characters are great, and I would have liked to have been more invested in them. And knowing that that's what this OVA is like, hey, here's a super rushed version of this really good story. For what it is, it's really good. But this is usually why I don't watch OVAs that are really rushed versions of very good stories. I tend to avoid them and would prefer to watch the original or just read the manga. So yeah, I'm not quite on the same hype level you guys are about it, but I definitely recognize that there's something really, really good in there. It's just the presentation that we are kind of forced to have to go through was a little not up to current snuff.
I think one thing that wasn't done decently in the OVA was because of the short time. We didn't get a lot of lore. Specifically about her and like where she's from, why she's a cyborg, what her past life was like, why she's so strong. Like, we don't get a lot of that, which and another criticism about the actual film is we get a bunch more, but I felt I was like wanting more. I was like, okay, hold on, tell me more about her. Because it's her abilities are for how small she is against these larger opponents is just brilliant. And actually, I was impressed with how it was animated in the OVA.
Okay. Now, okay, so I'm gonna declare a spoiler warning. Again, this is only spoiler warning for the OVA old anime. Jason won't say anything spoiling the new movie. I don't think Jeremy would let him. But so now we're just going to talk about random plot points, and we're not going to hold anything back. So what did you guys want to bring up first? The love story felt rushed to me. How did you?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
And that was too bad because especially that ending, and I must have seen this too because I've seen that ending before. And nothing else was striking my memory. Of course, I know who Alita is. I'm aware of it, but that ending, I was like, oh, I've seen this, and this is rough. That's a rough way to end. But honestly, I was like, I hated that boy because it's like, oh, okay, I guess she loves you, and I guess you don't care,
right?
But you do, but you don't. But
well, like, and everyone talks about going to Zolom, right? And like that's the ultimate dream of everyone that lives in Iron City, and I don't know. In the OVA, it felt a bit more contrived than I think it should have been, because it was this like pie in the sky thing that is amazing, but nobody's been there except for the outcasts, right? And most of the outcasts have no interest in going back except for the lady, right?
Boobies McGee.
Yeah.
Which she gets a trip to
Good old-
Zalem.
Good old Kyron.
Ugh.
Yeah. I was trying to figure it out just in the sense of what are they trying to say with the character? Because it's way too fast to be a legitimate relationship where I really have any kind of investment in seeing these two characters together. I don't really buy the relationship, but I do buy his obsession. Especially after seeing his brother get his head chopped off for the same obsession.
Mm-hmm.
Like the sort of denial of you can't have this. It's just not possible. Every law is against you. Everything that you could possibly try to do to get this is your death. And so he's trying to find this alternative method. And that is the one thing that matters to him. And really she doesn't, not that much. Like she's more of an idle curiosity. Like, this would be fun. This would be interesting, but only up there, if I could take her up there with me. And so I bought that part of their relationship. And so for me, it seemed like all of the characters kind of stood as an obsession in their own way, right? So like Yugo's obsession was getting up there. Her obsession was finding somebody that she could love or finding out who she was. But you had a parallel of obsessions going on with the Chiron and the Doctor. And I thought that for that reason, their relationship was really cool. Especially because it ended kind of the same way for both.
I loved that she seemingly comes from this world where she's only deemed enough to be trash. But then here on the ground, she's near superhero level. So it's like, what was so important up there that she's considered on the bottom rung? That was fantastic. I did hate how the leader of the what is that, the storehouse, or what was it called? Anyways, how he died was the stupidest death scene I've seen in an anime in a long time.
Oh, where the arm got him. It was like the arm was chopped off and it flew across the room and speared him. Like, yes. Hello, 90s.
you thought that was worse than the guy who just randomly got struck by lightning?
No, that wasn't random.
I realized there was a lightning storm and that he had his sword up, but
no, she charged him.
Yeah,
that's why her arms opened up. And they had the whole dialogue.
He still got hit by a lightning bolt, right?
Yeah, so like she charged him with electricity so that the lightning would come up, because most lightning, right, comes up.
Okay.
So it would come up through him and fry him. Yeah, I did think it was strange that he was actually faster than her, or at least fast enough to corner her. It surprised me. I kept looking at his eyes and thinking, "Are you one too? Like, are you a sibling bot or something?" Like, yeah, that was,
yeah. The because the love story felt so pushed and rushed. When she's cornering him in the old building, I'm like, this feels a little rapey from the other side. Like this is a nice way to put it on, flip it on its head.
Punching through the wall. Okay, yeah, if a dude did this, everybody would be freaking out.
Right? Yep. I want to talk about that ending because of everything I saw, which, some was cool. That ending really is going to stand out to me the most because it felt almost like a horror ending. There's like a horror element to that whole.
Absolutely.
I'm on this thing. There's a ring, especially the fact his feet fly off, and it's. Thankfully, they turned him into a robot before that happened, but
right.
Jeez.
God, the way he turned into a robot before that happened was already horror.
Yeah, I thought just his arm got cut off, and then she goes to the doctor and she pulls down his head, and I'm like, oh, okay, that was more damage than I thought.
Yep. Well, and the fascinating part was that it was just his arm that got cut off. Chiron actually cut his head off.
Oh, she pulled his head off
and
to keep
surgically attached him to Alita's internal.
Well, they had to. They had to, because she could not, because of the Hunter Code, she could not come out of that building with him alive.
Yeah. That was great.
It was interesting that he was the doctor dude was so quick to be like, okay, you're my partner as a hunter warrior now. And he knows nothing about her.
It almost seemed like he was basically saying, well, I can't stop you, clearly. Yeah. So I just hope you're a good person.
I think a lot of that also has to do with the rush storytelling. Like, we don't have time to watch him deliberate whether he should or can't. He clearly doesn't want her to, and then he clearly is going to let her. That's all we need to know.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Villain-wise, I didn't think the dog was going to die. And the guts going rough everywhere, and then her smearing the dog blood on her face, and I was like, that's kind of rough.
It wasn't quite enough connection between her and the dog. Like, we see the dog following her around in a couple of scenes, but I was like, I would have liked to have seen more development of that, where it's like, yeah, this is her pet.
Like, why does she smear it on her face?
Yeah, like, she's a football player now. She's gonna go kick his butt.
I just didn't get that part.
Yeah. Well, and I remember that in the trailers for the movie that she's got blood smeared on her cheeks. So, like, don't tell me, but I'm just wondering, like, what that's from.
It'll be interesting if Hollywood has the balls to murder dogs. Like, Hollywood doesn't like to murder dogs, and they don't like to murder kids, and that usually happens in, like, the most biggest horror movies.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
What was it? The boy, I can't remember his name. Boyfriend.
Hugo.
Yeah, Hugo. Like, I really wished they would have spent less time on his day job and more time on him hacking up cyborgs. Because I think that would have led to a little more credence to the, why do you like this guy that hacks up your kind?
Yeah.
And she did seem to like, oh, you murder people? Well, that's okay. You're cute.
Well, he makes a point to say that he doesn't murder them. He just takes their spines.
Yeah, which is funny because we've seen a couple of cyborgs without spines, and they wind up being just like silicone mouths on little R2-D2 bodies, that are just kind of moving around.
Which happens to Chiron.
Yes, basically. Oh,
yeah, she gets to ride the Zolom in a box.
Yep. Many boxes.
I thought it was interesting that because he was of that profession that was supposed to be the bad guys, and then she becomes a hunter, and then he fights a hunter and kills him. So it's like, who's the villain of the story? Because he's like, oh, this hunter just murdered my friend. Oh, the hunters are so bad. But wait, she's a hunter, and you're the one stealing spines. And that wasn't really, that hunter wasn't that bad of a guy, was he? He was more stopping you from being a horrible criminal.
Yep.
Yeah, I did like that, playing with the morality of living in that social structure.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, where the police don't exist anymore, right?
Yep.
Well, and the whole story is about classism, right? And super examining the lowest rung, and even when the highest rung is not even obtainable, but just the fact that it exists affects the lower rung. But because, again, the Soviet had to go so fast, that's skipped like a stone going across the lake.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't. Oh, go ahead.
I said, which again, I think would have been why this was much better, like in the full manga version, or watching it fully played out, because then they can dip into that stuff better.
Exactly, because I mean, they barely touched on the arena, right? The what is it? The fighting games that they would like bet on or whatever.
In the background, yeah.
Yeah, like I thought they were gonna like get into that, or she was gonna get into that for money or fame or whatever. And yeah,
they even started a plan like, hey, we'll get this guy in a bad position, and then she'll have to join, and then it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, I think that's what Chiron's supposed to go pick her up at that point, and Chiron overhears their love story and is like, oh yes, I remember I had that for the doctor, and look at my hologram of the two of us, and yeah, which it completely derailed that path, but it took it down another path where I was really pleased with the result, because basically nobody got a happy ending, and it fits when you have like a Blade Runner gritty story.
Right.
That's how they're supposed to end. Like, you don't get a happy ending.
Right.
Nobody does.
I had heard a rumor, and we'll probably end with this, but I had heard a rumor that Battle Angel Alita is almost a rebuttal to Astro Boy. You know, Astro Boy is the super robot on the top level, and he saves the day for the people up there. And then here's the people Astro Boy's not paying attention to.
Really?
Oh.
But I get your guys' face. Tell me I've heard that and you haven't, so that might just be an unfounded rumor that who knows. I saw it on Reddit. I don't, or where it came from.
That's a really good theory, though.
I like it. Yeah. I've never really looked into Battle Angel Alita enough, and I certainly haven't started doing research because I don't want to spoil myself by accident.
I think what another thing I appreciate about it is it wasn't just another male protagonist, but like we get another example of a really great female protagonist. And you know, a lot of the it goes to the shell on the movie. And I think I'm leaning towards more what was in film lately. Like Ghost in the Shell kind of fell flat a bit, and well, I enjoyed it. I liked it. But man, so and this is the one thing is like I look at Scarlett Johansson, she does fantastic martial arts work. Like she either they're doing really great cuts or she does really great work, which I think there's maybe a combination of both.
Yeah.
But then you might look at and I think this is more of a product of it being a B movie, video game movie, but like Rayland, or you know, the vampire blade lady, like that movie was horrendous.
Yeah, it was directed by Yu Boll. Of course, it was horrendous.
I couldn't even make it halfway through it. It was so bad.
Is that Blood Rain? Is that
Blood Rain?
Blood Rain.
Yeah,
Don't never watch anything by Yu Boll. Just.
But I think the point I'm trying to get across is they did really good long action shots of Battle Angel doing what felt like hard hits. Like it felt like a tenured combat, a hardened person, and it tends to not be that in film. And anyways, I'm praising this movie a little too much.
That's the movie though, right? Not the OVA, because the OVA, she's like, she does it, but she's so quick.
Well, I think that's a product of the anime. I mean, we saw that in Gridman, right? It's see him power up and then death. But right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought they did the combat pretty well. I like the choreography in the OVA.
I think probably one of my favorite combat scenes is the first time that she really breaks into combat, where she jumps underneath the guy and then like propels herself off the ground through his shoulder. Like I did not see that coming. That was great. Loved that. But
yeah. All right. I think we're gonna end there. If you have thoughts on Battle Angel Alita, the OVA or the manga, or you know, basically everything but the movie, or you can talk about the movie, not spoilery, or you can literally do whatever you want. We can't stop you, but we'd appreciate no spoilers for the new movie. But you can reach us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast. You can reach us on our email, theanimebakaclub@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, and it will get back to us. And we really appreciate it when you do that. With that said, we are currently watching Goblin Slayer. We will be talking about that next week. Again, that we have a mature content warning on that, because there's infamous scenes in it, and you just know what you're getting into before you decide to watch it with us. Otherwise, I think it's time to go, and we hope you enjoy the movie if you go, as Jason suggested. I do actually agree with you that, especially if we want good live action movies, when they do make a good live action anime, it should be supported. And no one should ever buy Dragon Ball. All right.
How not to do anime crossover.
Yes.
All right. Let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Have a good week.
Sayonara.